You're listening to Kingdom Radio. On today's show, we have former Army Ranger Special Forces and former Army Drill Sergeant Joe LNU. Welcome to the Second Amendment on Kingdom Radio with special guest Joe LNU.
Yeah, Laura, did you know that Joe LNU has a Twitter page and he's got like a whole bunch of followers?
Well, yeah, he's smart.
Yeah,
I never knew that Joe LNU was on any type of social media. Never. You know, and all of a sudden now he's on Twitter. Why the sudden change of heart, dude?
I'll be honest, Elon Musk. You know me. I like my Constitution.
He's on Tucker right now.
Being an American. Oh, is he?
Well, yeah, it was a pre-recorded something from last week, but they showed some last night, and then the part 2's on right now.
Yeah, I saw some clips of it. No, I like he's a First Amendment absolutist. I agree with that.
We're talking Constitution here on Kingdom Radio.
You have a problem, and here's the difference we have when they talk about a contextualist Supreme Court justice and a progressive Supreme Court justice, what we call left and rights. A contextualist tries to determine what the founders meant when they wrote those words down. The Constitution wasn't like drafted up on a napkin somewhere. I mean, this thing had to be ratified. It wasn't the founding fathers either. It was the founding citizens. They had to ratify this, and they had some strong opinions about things that are in
the founding citizens. I like that.
Well, it wasn't just your George Washingtons and Benjamin Franklin. Sure, they helped put it together, but this thing had to be ratified. It had to be ratified just like if you would add or change an amendment today. 2/3 of the House, 2/3 of the Senate, signed off by the president, and then ratified by 3/4 of the states. And that's the people in the states that vote on it. And don't quote me on the exact times, but somewhere like 1879 or 1889 is when the Suffrage Act amendment came in. I think it was the 19th that allowed women to vote. But the first woman didn't vote until 1920.
Wow.
It took it that long to ratify. Oddly enough, they were able to get prohibition through very quickly.
Yeah, prohibition.
There will be no alcohol served except Bud Light.
I'm going cold turkey.
Me too.
Man, you know so much about like history and everything, the Constitution and Bill of Rights and all of that stuff, man. It's I always love talking to you.
You're listening to some real patriots on Kingdom Radio.
The Don't Tread on Me. At some point I did read it and I knew the history of what it was, but it was back with the colonists, right?
It was. You got to remember, we weren't always the United States. We were states, but the government we kind of had was here before. It was just ruled by the crown. And in England at the time, you had the King George, and most people in the colonies prior to 1776, until the Declaration of Independence was sent over and King George's response, most people in the colonies believed that King George was a good dude. And the Parliament was the problem, because they had this Parliament that was in between them and the king is where they felt. The laws were coming from Parliament, the taxes were coming, the harsh punishments that were coming from Parliament. So they thought Parliament was the problem. It wasn't until they signed the Declaration of Independence, and the whole thing about John Hancock, I'm going to write it big so he can see it without his spectacles. He just wanted to make sure that his name was there because he thought the king was a good guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And his response was, damn the torpedoes, we're going to show them who's boss. And that turned everybody sour, but it wasn't massive. But Massachusetts was the one that really kicked everything off.
With the Boston Tea Party?
Yeah, even before that.
The
folks in Boston, man, that's a rough and rowdy crowd back in the day. The British were afraid. What they had was you had magistrates that were paid by the crown. So they would come in and they were paid but they were the judges. But they didn't really have a whole lot of control. They were just one of them, and then you had all the colonists or the people that lived in Boston. Samuel Adams being one of them was a pretty rough
Great
cat.
beer, by the way. Great beer.
I think he enjoyed a lot of it back in the day. But it wasn't not uncommon to have riots. There was an occasion, I think, in Virginia where a new judge come in and he thought he was going to try to get along with the people, have this big open house and party. Before the night was over, like 2 people were beat to death.
Great party. When's the next one?
Wow, but isn't that how you settled conflicts back in the day? Legally?
Well, go back to 2A. You talk about the people that wrote the Constitution. They settled their differences with duels. You really think they intended us not to be armed?
This Joe LNU retweet is brought to you by Kingdom Radio.
2A, you talk about the people that wrote the Constitution. They settled their differences with duels.
Yeah.
You really think they intended us not to be armed? You really think they intended us not to be armed?
Hello. True.
Yeah, it's like
They didn't have a problem with it.
yeah, there would be like the Republicans and Democrats. It's like no, we're done talking.
Man, look here. I'm done talking.
We're done talking. Smart 12, dude. And then only one of us is going to be left. I mean, they wouldn't be like serving 10 years in office anymore. That wouldn't happen.
Well, don't forget that Aaron Burr killed Alexander Hamilton while he was the vice president of the United States. In a duel that was over really a slight in offense. You insulted me, sir.
Yeah.
The glove slap and let the pistols go.
Wow. I mean, that's history. So
That's where we come from.
Yeah, you were talking about the in Massachusetts where they were the actual
Rebels.
but the rest of the colonies and the rest of them, they weren't like really trying to unite at that time, right?
You had the common sentiment. You had a population that most had never been to England, but yet they had this benevolent king there that takes care of them. Things hadn't been good for since the 1750s. Is when there was a time period there through the 7 Years' Wars that basically England, Great Britain, was occupied in other places. So the only thing they wanted was raw material out of the colonies. It was part of a chain that would come up from the Caribbean. Sugar cane and things that were grown in the Caribbean would come up kind of the seaway, hit the jet stream and go across. But it was raw product they wanted from us. And as long as we provided that, they left us alone. Self-governance. We started that. We had juries. And our juries were so lenient that any crimes against the crown, most of the colonists would let the person off anyway. That it got to a point where this is towards the end, close to the 1770s, where the Parliament demanded that all crimes be tried in an admiral court. Basically, they take you and put you on a ship, and you're tried with English people, not colonists, not a jury of your peers. But all this went on. It wasn't like they jumped up one day and said, "Hey, we're kind of done with this. We're going to walk off." This went on for a couple of generations. So people were really fed up about it, but they thought the king was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't until Lexington and all that fired up, and even then, they to the point they sent the Declaration of Independence. In fact, all the colonies didn't sign off on the Declaration of Independence, but it signed on July 4th. New York delegates didn't sign it.
It was actually the second, wasn't it?
It was drafted and accepted on the 4th.
Yeah.
It was recognized on the 4th. They said it was signed and everything on the 2nd, but it took them 2 days to get it over there. So, I mean, if you look at the history and look up...
They had to vote on it. It was signed and accepted, but they had to vote. All the colonies had to agree that they were going to send it to the king. It wasn't until the 4th that they had a group to do it, and that's because New York abstained from the vote. They didn't vote no. They just abstained from it, so they had a majority. They were able to say, yes, this is our Declaration of Independence. We're going to send it.
Just in case things don't work out our way, I want to just say that I didn't approve or deny.
Well, honestly, I think that's what it was.
Of course.
You had a lot of Tories living in the colonies, and these are people that are loyal to the crown. That the Senate, like what I'm saying is the sentiment that we weren't all united in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until really the first year in the war that they realized that it's on like Donkey Kong and we're going to win this. And of course, we had a lot of issues there just through the Revolutionary War.
What's up with the Boston Tea Party? Because Laura and I, we've been trying to do some bucket list stuff, but I've never been to Boston, even though I'm from the East Coast. And the Boston Tea Party, I can't believe I haven't. We'll have to do it soon. But what was the story with that one? Was that what started? Like, once that happened, why is that so famous?
Well, you're 10 or 15 years into. Okay, remember, Great Britain left us. Maybe I didn't finish that. Great Britain had left the colonies alone, self-rule, and somewhere around mid 1750s, they start taking interest in the colonies again. Figure they need to start getting these guys under control. So that's when taxes went up. And there was even an instance in Massachusetts where there's some trees there that grow super straight. Probably even still to this day, they were good for shipbuilding. The guy made great ships. And they come through there one day and branded all the good trees with the king's seal, and it was punishable by death if you took it in one of the king's trees. But it was this guy's livelihood. They took all the good ones.
Sound like some bullshit to me.
So yeah, stuff like that had been boiling up. This is before the Boston Tea Party, and then there was a tea tax I don't remember exactly how much it was. It was kind of high.
Obviously.
And the colonists that were the rebels, basically, as you would call them, or the early revolutionaries, they stopped drinking. That's why we drink coffee. We don't drink tea because tea was non-American. But that was a point when this tea was very expensive too, by the way. It was coming out of India. And all the tea come into the Boston Harbor, and they dressed up like Indians, so that they would blame the Indians, and nobody would be punished with 50 lashes in the square because they couldn't identify anybody. They dumped the tea over, but it wasn't the only one. There were several of them. It happened in Baltimore, happened in New York. It went on and happened in Boston more than once.
Wow.
So it got to the point where it was so expensive that I can't remember. There's a point there where they dumped it out. It really cost the company that was bringing in a ton of money. I think they lost insurance or something once it moved into the harbor.
Now the tea was going out or coming in?
Coming in.
Coming in to sell, but that was the only company that was allowed. The British company was the only tea company, quote unquote, that was allowed to be in there, and it was a higher price.
So that's like someone's coffee, like tea, right? And so I know how Laura is when she hasn't had her coffee. I mean, no wonder they're like turning over boats and everything.
There you go.
Americans begin to drink coffee.
Yeah.
That's why you have, it's more, tea's popular in Europe and popular in England or Great Britain, but it's not popular here. We drink coffee, but it goes back to the Boston Tea Party. To drink tea was un-American.
Wow. And also you were telling me the people who, spoke with the Boston accent, you said that was so popular, even people in England were doing it. That was like the cool thing to do, right?
Well, I tried to run that down. It was actually something I heard actually on a Joe Rogan podcast, that there was some linguistics that had done the research and determined that most people in the colonies talk like people do with the accent of modern day Boston.
Yeah.
Which made me laugh because I think about that Samuel Adams commercial. Cousin from Boston.
Yeah, right. Pack your guy over here.
Put that to some Benjamin Franklin, some George Washington. We look back and they spoke with a very eloquent British accent, but they didn't.
Yeah. Hey, man, tell me about Bud Light. Wasn't that your favorite beer a couple months ago, or is that still your favorite beer? What's up with some Bud Light?
Nah, I don't drink any Bud Light.
You're not AR-15 like Kid Rock or nothing like that, right?
Nah. I wasn't buying it before. I'm not buying it now. So
oh, yeah.
I mean, what difference does it make?
I wonder, I wonder what their intention was. I mean, I know what the result was, but I wonder what their intention was. Because it seems like now, like, the result of it is like everyone's making fun of transgender people. Bud Light. From the commercials, right? I mean, it's the cancel culture goes both ways, no pun intended. Right?
I think they misread the room with the whole trans thing.
Right.
So you get it. If you're
misread the room.
Really much where I'm at anyway, I don't care what other people do.
Right.
I want to dress up like a chick, man. Knock yourself out.
Yeah, they're doing a good job,
I don't care.
I kick ass in swimming.
So we kind of sat back and just kind of let this go. Nobody wanted to be the bad guy and saying like, hey, that's taking a little too far. But they went too far when they started like, oh no, I'm a real woman. I'm having a period.
Fake news.
All right. Now women are like, hey, what the hell happened? You women, y'all been asleep at the wheel. I don't know what happened. You fight for all them rights, and it's like, yeah, this guy's better than me. And literally, what's happening is that men are better at being women than women. Beating them in sports, Women of the Year. They get medals for being courageous.
Fake news.
Yeah.
But I think they
get like one of those CEO positions that are supposed to go to a woman, and a guy end up getting it anyway.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
No, he's a real woman.
Fake news.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, the best one I see on Twitter is with guys are like, where I say, guys, it's
You know what he's trying to say.
Right.
Dressed like a woman, and they got a box of tampons. I'm like, where are you putting that?
Yeah.
Fake news.
I mean, reality is going to kick in there at some point, right?
I mean,
yeah.
You can wish that to be all you want, but I mean, when it comes down to practice, it's not going to work out.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Bud Light, I think they missed the turn. I think things have been rolling around and turning. People kind of like fed up with it, and they just didn't read their market share. I don't think well enough.
oh no.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bud Light
You know-
presents Real Men with Pain.
I mean, you look at, the country is split. We all know that. One half of the country are, conservative-ish, and you have the other half that, free reign. And I think Bud Light drinkers are not the free reign people. They're more, wine spritzers.
And how do they recover from that, dude? I mean, they have to say, "Hey, I'm sorry," and apologize. I mean, at some
They
point,
can
they're going to
do
have to
that.
they're going to have to offend someone. I mean, what do they do? Nothing, or what are they supposed to do here?
Yeah, I hope they learn the corporate lesson is that just sell us what your product is and stay out of the rest of it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
what
that's
they
that's
also
the biggest
do.
problem in corporate America. They want to try to jump on the side. The problem is I jump on one side, I'm making enemies on the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want everybody. If it was me, I want everybody's green dollar.
Exactly.
You're listening to Joe LNU on Kingdom Radio.
Yeah, you talk about politics, and I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah, Lon,
educated
he's not a
formally other than-
Republican or Democrat. I didn't
No,
know
I'm not.
that. Joe LNU is neither one.
Well,
How
He's
can
the
you?
only person.
I don't think that you
I've met.
can. I'm all for term limits. I'm all for, people being able to make money how they want to make money and stuff. I mean, not illegally, of course, but I think that I just don't think that our government is taking care of us anymore. They're just neither side. They all need to go.
They're all fighting with
Well,
each
I think-
other.
I think part of the problem is that the government was never intended to take care of it.
Exactly.
And it's good. You go back to the Constitution. When I didn't know nothing about nothing when I joined the Army. 18 years old, and you raise your hand, you take that oath. You know what I'm talking about.
I know what
Ron,
you're
the oath
talking
you
about,
take.
sir.
And it struck me that I didn't know what I was going to be swearing an oath to. Didn't really care. Whatever I'm doing, the Army thing, let's go. But I was struck by the fact that I didn't declare my allegiance or my oath or my anything to a government, a person,
Right.
even the United States. I declared it to a freaking piece of paper.
Yeah.
And it kind of struck I'm interested at this point. And I started getting into it. I actually, of course, as a police officer, I follow Supreme Court decisions because a lot of that affects.
But you're only 18, 19 at this moment, right?
No, but it started an interest in the Constitution and how it got there.
Yeah.
Right.
Constitution is more deeper. It goes deeper than just 1776. We fought a war. George Washington was a good dude, and then these guys did this. They signed a Constitution, and there's a Bill of Rights. I mean, there's a whole story that goes behind it, and it's the same argument we have today, which is better. A large federal government and the states all work together as one as a collective. Individual rights, where each state has its own and determines what it wants to do.
Yeah.
And that fight goes on today. Democrats are obviously what they call big government. So I'm not for that. I'm for a republic. And it's funny. Listen to Democrats. They'll talk about democracy's in danger. Our democracy is in peril. Or our democracy is strong. They'll use democracy a lot. We're not a democracy.
Yeah.
Our Constitution guarantees us a constitutional republic, representative republic. And there's a difference. With a democracy, then it's kind of mob rules. If 51% of people want this, then that's what the law is. Doesn't matter what the Constitution is.
That's
And
a
you'll
democracy.
hear the progressives say that, talk about how the Constitution was written a long time ago. Sure, it was. But it's just as relevant today as it was then. And what's strange is it's the same argument from the very beginning.
Wow. What's going on with Trump, dog? With this, I mean, he had nothing to worry about, or what the hell is going on with
Well,
Alvin Bragg?
You and I have talked about this.
Yes, we have.
and I won't say for the hardcore Trump guys out there, I won't say what they're going to want to hear because that's a state charge. And I think he's trying to do some funky thing about trying to bring in some feds on it, but he doesn't have standing. There's going to be a federal assistant attorney that's going to have to stand behind the state charge. I mean, the federal charge on that. But I don't know.
But he was saying
What's
it was
weird is
something
they
like
haven't
it was going to be
dropped-
treason, like the penalty's death. I mean, that's what Trump was saying. I mean, what's all that about?
Who?
Trump was saying that he's past the statute of limitations, and so they have to change it to another charge, which is like treason, which the penalty's death. And I was like, really? I mean, what?
No.
No. What's up with the statute
Well,
of limitations on that?
a state can't charge you with treason. That's a constitutional crime that has to be charged by the federal government.
Okay.
You know what I learned through a lot of this is that most people don't understand how our government's layered, and it's in the Constitution. We see it every day, but we don't see it. like I guess you can't see the trees because of the forest, or the forest because of the trees.
Oh yeah.
But the only people that can enforce federal law is the federal government. That's the top layer of the cake. And because of the 14th, going back to the Constitution, because of the 14th Amendment, states have rights. They have the right to govern themselves. That was the big fight in the beginning. You had people like Hamilton that fought for combined government, larger government, and you had people like Jefferson who stood on the fact that no, we didn't fight this war to go have another government to answer to. We answer to ourselves. And the premise behind that is that you talked about earlier. Well, I can have a firearm because I have wildlife that comes to my house at night.
Right.
And why would it not be smarter for people in your county or people in your state to decide what kind of firearm you can have? Because you're going to have the same problems.
Yeah.
Why does somebody in New York give a shit what kind of gun you have down here?
True.
So that's the republic side of it. That is the constitutional republic. That's kind of where I'm at. You know, I don't care. The abortion thing, of course, I think that could be solved easily. But the abortion thing, let states decide. If people in Texas don't like what our abortion laws are, we can change it. We can change it a lot faster than we can change a federal law.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then you have the other side of the house that no, it needs to be the same everywhere. How come somebody in Nevada has a different law to go get an abortion than somebody in Texas? Well,
Yeah.
because you live in Nevada.
Yeah. It's like marijuana is legal in Colorado, but not in Texas, sir. You're like, oh,
Still
yeah,
illegal,
of course.
It's still illegal federally.
Yeah, yeah.
It's still a federal offense. But here's your problem. If the feds were to take somebody in Texas and jack them up for a large quantity of possession of marijuana on a federal charge, and they go to the district court here in North Texas, they're going to sit with a North Texas jury, and what are they going to say? His only crime was he did it in the wrong place, because it's a federal crime. Goes back again to the 10th and the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. You can't enforce it here if you don't enforce it there. So it pretty much shut down federal marijuana enforcement when California went legal.
This concludes part 1 of our interview with Joe LNU. Stay tuned to the next episode where we dive into the best Christmas light prank ever. Stay tuned here on Kingdom Radio.